literally, I look like I've got a foot in the grave. And then just look at me, they tell me to go home and rest. It blows my mind. I'm like ready for them to fire me because I'm being a little bit less productive that day.
Exactly. Like around here, that's how it is. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I've done what's the dumbest thing an American has ever said to you a couple times. The last one was recently. Very much enjoyed it. So I found this from the same channel, which the original channel's TikTok Reacts, just so you know. And there will be a link in the description section down below for that. So make sure you go check that out. This one is how has your concept of freedom changed as an American living abroad, part 1. So I'm assuming they're going to be doing, or they already have done more parts of this. So let's do it. How has your concept of freedom changed as an American living abroad?
If you're an American that has moved abroad, how has your concept of freedom changed? Do you prefer the freedom of knowing that you won't get unexpected medical bills? Do you prefer the freedom of being able to spend more time with your family due to shorter work weeks? Do you prefer the freedom of knowing that the government has minimum employment standards, like guaranteed paid time off of between 20 and 40 paid days off a year, depending on which country you've moved to? Do you prefer the freedom of knowing that if you hear fireworks, you can encourage your children to look out the window rather than questioning whether it's something else you should be afraid of?
Oh boy.
Do you prefer the freedom of knowing that freedom of speech doesn't extend to unlimited campaign bribes that corporations can invest in politicians to get them to do their bidding instead of yours? So yeah, how has your concept of freedom changed?
So what he was talking about the like the paid time off and this and that. In America, maternity leave is only 6 weeks for the mother, unpaid. Your job's secure, but unpaid 6 weeks. Over in Europe, I heard in one of the videos I reacted to that it's not just for the mother, it's also for the father, and it's not unpaid leave, it's paid leave, and it's longer than 6 weeks. I don't remember how much longer, but certainly longer than 6 weeks. Also, the freedom of healthcare, the freedom of education, stuff like that is more strong and more prevalent in Europe. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, vacation time, holiday time, as you guys call it. Over here, you're lucky to get a week or two off work for vacation time. And that's usually after you've worked there for like a year before you're eligible for it or whatever. In Europe, evidently, as soon as you get the job or as soon as your trial period or whatever's over, probationary period, whatever you call it, you're eligible for your paid vacation. And it's certainly longer than just a week or two. Yeah. So that's, that's a little bit of what I know. And also over there, there's a saying, I guess, your freedom ends where somebody else begins. So basically you have the freedom as long as your freedom isn't restricting somebody else's freedom or something like that. So anyways, tangent over, whatever. We're going to get into this.
My understanding of freedom has changed dramatically since I moved abroad. And it started with unpicking just how much the word freedom is used as a dog whistle in the USA. The concepts of liberty and freedom are repeated so often and across so many channels. They become indelibly connected to this idea that America is the greatest. People come from elsewhere in the world to America for freedom, to the land of the free, the home of the brave. This kind of rhetoric. And it's everywhere, so it becomes kind of part of the fabric of reality.
Yeah, they push it down your throat so much over here. It's basically propaganda.
I had to say the Pledge of Allegiance every day for the first 4 years of my elementary school career. The last line of it is, with liberty and justice for all. And it's not liberty and justice for all. It's liberty and justice for a few in America. And it's
yeah, there's a huge inequality here. The gap between the rich and the poor is just getting bigger and bigger.
a very small demographic. So my understanding of freedom changed when I started to unpack how much we are inundated with freedom propaganda in the USA.
Exactly. Propaganda, like she said.
So I spent like 16 months living in Europe. 4 when I was an undergrad and then a year in grad school. And even though I already had a sense of this before I went to live there, it really struck me that no matter where I needed to go, like across the city, across the country, or to a completely different country, I never really needed a car. Like I can count on my fingers the number of times in 16 months that I needed to get a taxi, and I never needed to rent a car because public transit was just always so reliable. And there's a lot of freedom in that. And here we associate cars with freedom, but that freedom comes at a cost. And it's an even higher cost if you don't own a car. And you've probably experienced this if you've had to like drop your car off for inspection or maintenance. Because while you're waiting to get your car back, you are stranded. You realize when you're on foot just how much of this country is built for cars. And that's a pretty warped sense of freedom.
Yeah, and it's car dependent. Like if you don't live in a city, I mean, even if you live in a city, scratch that. So yeah, even living in the middle of a city, a lot of times the public transportation sucks. And like downtown, you know, might be all the businesses and office buildings and stuff, right? But there's no housing usually downtown in a lot of these cities. I think New York's an exception. I believe there is a lot of like apartments and stuff like that in the city of New York. But just your general average city in America, your housing is off in the suburbs somewhere outside of the city. So then you have like the business district where the offices would be, you know, for any paperwork or like appointments that you got to go to. And then you got like your shopping malls and like all your stores, you know, for groceries and food will be in a whole nother section of town. And then like on the other side of town, you would have like your factories and all your workplaces all in, you know, so you're it's just so scattered and you pretty much have to have a car to even get around. Whereas over in Europe, everything's kind of mixed up together and everything. And like he was saying, there's a ton of people over there that don't even have a car and don't even need a car, especially in the Netherlands.
There are a lot of different things I could say for this question, but one of the things that feels very relevant to everything going on in the States as far as the Supreme Court goes is how Ireland changes their constitution. Now, this isn't exactly freedom necessarily, and it wasn't something that I was able to actively participate in because I don't have my citizenship yet. But I've been here for 2 referendums, the same-sex marriage referendum as well as the repeal the 8th referendum. For both of these important issues, a citizens' assembly was organized and done before the actual referendum took place.
I don't know what the 8th is. I don't know what that means.
And the entire country voted to decide whether or not to allow same-sex marriages to happen based on the Constitution and whether there was a right to an abortion. Both of these passed.
Okay, so that must have been the 8th thing she was talking about.
This type of direct democracy was incredibly refreshing to experience.
He made so many good points. For me, it was realizing that my perception of what makes a good quality of life was actually so low in the view of an Australian that it's a bit embarrassing. I actually met another American and she's like, oh, I find it so easy to get along here. I feel really guilty because my Australians have the opposite. They're talking about how difficult it is. And we really said that we realize it's because we're given so much less. Like imagine making $7.25 an hour and trying to live in a city that is expensive as what things are right now, like particularly a city on the West Coast or East Coast in the States, or even at $10 an hour, try to get by on that. And so we're just happy that we can like pay the bills on your minimum wage and it's not stressing us like we're not in debt. It was
that's real. Minimum wage has been $7.25 in the state of India. Every state's different. Like New York City or New York State or whatever, $15 an hour, right? But of course, cost of living's higher. In the state of Indiana, where I live at, it's $7.25, and it's been $7.25 for probably 20 years. Inflation's going up, groceries are going up, gas is going up, rent, house payments, all that's going up, but your pay ain't going up none.
Part of it was I went to university here and I tell them where I went, they're like, that's so expensive, how did you go there? And I'm like, as an American, like this is a pretty normal cost for university. So imagine it being so normalized that you're supposed to pay through the nose for your education.
Right.
And then the last thing was the time off. Like, I already work in a good industry in project management here, but I took on another job just because I was impressed by the wages in hospitality. And Australians are like, you need to chill. Like, chill out. Take a break. Take a break. You don't need two jobs. I'm like, no, I don't need two jobs, but like, you pay so well, I should have two jobs. And like, that's terribly American and probably pretty toxic.
Yeah, that's terrible. I'm the other way around. Like, I don't need to be rich. I don't need to have a ton of stuff. If I have enough to pay my bills, buy food, and get by, I'm happy. I'd rather enjoy my free time than just have a stack of cash sitting around that I can't take to the grave with me any damn way. You know what I mean?
And then if I'm not feeling well at work, they say go home, take a rest.
You don't have that here. Certainly, you do not have that here. They tell you, oh, yeah, you have sick days. Good luck getting them. You call in sick and they act like you're lying. Like it's like you got to walk on eggshells. You're afraid for losing your job, and they'll just sit there and they'll pick on you and push you out. Sometimes they'll just look for the dumbest reasons to fire you just because you had the flu one day, and they act like you're lying if you even have to call into work, and it's like you're breaking their arm just to get a sick day. It's ridiculous.
Come back when you're ready. That is unheard of. My managers have always said, suck it up. Like, just do it. So they'll see me like, literally, I look like I've got a foot in the grave. And they'll just look at me and they'll tell me to go home and rest. It blows my mind. I'm like ready for them to fire me because I'm being a little bit less productive that day.
Exactly. Like around here, that's how it is.
Because I've seen that happen. I've had plenty of places in the States I've seen employees get fired because they weren't well and they weren't productive. They just bring in someone else to fill that space to be exploited. So it's just insane to me. You're used to a higher quality and standard of living here in Australia. The lowest of your low is so high to me. I'm like impressed by it. I'm like, ooh, okay, let's do this. This is lavish.
I wish it was like that here, man. It just sucks because it's like, nobody really wants to leave their country. This is where it's where you're from. It's where your culture is. It's all your friends, all your family. But realizing how the world is, it's like, it's much better off in a lot of these other places. But being stuck here in the situation I'm in, I can't, I do have family. I do have stuff holding me back, and it would probably be at least 5 years before I would even be able to go anywhere. It's just a lot to it, it's just, to just pick up and pack up and leave, and then the way the world's going right now, it's kind of like scary to even think about moving to Europe or something, even though that's a dream of mine. I'd love to move to the Netherlands. With my luck, as soon as I get over there, World War III is going to pop off. You know what I mean?
So I'm an American living in Finland, and immediately yes to everything in that video. Yes to the freedom of no longer fearing gun violence, no longer fearing medical bills, having labor rights and workers' rights and a livable minimum wage. All of that, absolutely. But I think for me, the biggest freedom that I enjoy as an American living not in America is the freedom from the fear of sexual violence and the freedom from rape culture and the daily sexual violence that I experienced in America. And I lived in big, liberal, progressive cities like Boston and San Francisco, and every time I left the house, I was catcalled, I was grabbed, I was sexually assaulted. I have experienced daily sexual violence.
That's sad. And yeah, that is a thing too. Like, I don't do that. I can't stand it. But like, you do see that other guys and stuff they'll catcall, they'll whistle, they'll say derogatory remarks. I don't understand it. I've never understood it. It's not everywhere. It's definitely situational on where you're located. So evidently Boston and whatever else she said, is bad about that. But usually if you go to a bigger city, you know, not necessarily so much around the places that I live, but like if you go to Chicago or, you know, Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is probably a bigger, yeah, one of the closer bigger cities around me, or South Bend, or you know, somewhere like that, Indianapolis. But it is sad, and I don't understand. It's like it's just a complete lack of respect. It really is.
For the entirety of my life that I can remember in America. And when I moved to Finland, and for the first couple of months that I lived here, was living in Helsinki, and I never once felt afraid to walk in any part of the city at any time, day or night, wearing
Nice.
any amount of clothing, including in the
Whoops.
summer when I was wearing shorts and a tank top. And I never once was sexualized or harassed or catcalled or made to feel like a sexual object. And I think that is a freedom that I didn't even imagine being possible. And that is the freedom that I am most grateful for having left America.
You know, that's one thing. That's one thing that I never really even thought about necessarily, as a difference, because I'm a man, and it could happen, but generally, men, you know, don't get sexually assaulted or catcalled or anything like that. So it's not really anything that I've personally experienced. And like I said, around here, people don't really do that much. It's really only like if you go to like bigger cities and stuff where there's a lot of like, I call them street rats. I think I got that from the Aladdin movie, but around here they're just like, you know, wannabe thugs, or like, you know, wannabe gangbangers, and you know, it's ridiculous. But for some reason they have that mentality that they think it's okay. It's like I don't get it, guys. I don't get it, but I could totally see how that's a relief for her, not having to deal with that, because you know it's got to be demoralizing, and you know, to be treated that way.
Let me introduce you to my medical box. What? As an international student on a student visa in the UK, I pay £470 as my immigration healthcare surcharge fee. That means over the course of the 6 years that I've lived here, I've paid a total of £2,820 for my healthcare. And that's it. There's been no prescription costs, there's been no emergency hospitalization costs, and I've had to use all of the healthcare a lot. I have endometriosis, I've been diagnosed as a celiac while I've been here, and I get food on prescription through the NHS.
I don't know what those two disorders that she has are. That sucks for her. I wish her the best. But food, how do you get food on your prescription thing? Like that's not, I've never heard of that. Of course, I'm not in the UK, but that's crazy.
Because I can't have gluten. And not having to pay anything extra for
Okay.
my healthcare means that I've had freedom to do things like, I got a cat.
Look at that little fluffy thing. I want a cat like that. That'd be cool. We had a cat. It ran away. I miss it so much. I want to get a Maine Coon. Those things are massive. Do you guys have Maine Coons over there? Because they are domestic, like native to like the state of Maine, and I think maybe like some of them looked like a raccoon or something at the time, and I mean they get different color variations, but I think that's where the name came from, because it looked like a raccoon, but really big, from Maine. It's the largest domestic cat you can get here, or the largest cat in general you can get here without having like a special permit. But anyways, if you're an American watching my videos and you're living in another country, comment down below, add to it. How has your concept of freedom changed as an American living abroad, right? This was a fun video. You guys have a super fun, awesome day. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right, take care. Bye.